Woman entered the church with a baby. And the groom can't believe his eyes when he sees the child's face. Brandon Mitchell was standing there before the altar, his heart racing and his hands sweating inside the white gloves of his rented tuxedo. In just a few minutes, he would be officially married to Ashley, the woman he had met 8 months ago and who had promised to be his companion for life. But something deep in his chest bothered him, a strange feeling he couldn't explain. That's when the heavy wooden doors of the Sacred Heart of Jesus Church in downtown Austin opened with a bang that echoed off the saint-covered walls. A young woman came running down the center aisle, holding firmly in her arms a baby just a few months old. Brandon felt his blood run cold when his eyes met the child's face. "Brandon, I need to talk to you," shouted Jessica, her voice breaking with emotion as she walked toward the altar. Father William, a 70-year-old man who had been performing weddings at that church for over 4 decades, stopped the ceremony immediately. The 60 guests present turned simultaneously to watch the scene unfolding before their eyes. Ashley, the bride, turned as white as the veil covering her hair. "What are you doing here?" asked Brandon, his voice louder than he intended. Jessica stopped a few meters from the altar, gently rocking the baby to calm him. The child had the same green eyes as Brandon, the same dimple in the chin that he had inherited from his maternal grandmother. It was impossible to deny the resemblance. "This is your son, Brandon." "Our son," said Jessica, tears streaming down her face. A murmur swept through the church pews. Mrs. Patricia, Ashley's mother, rose indignantly from her seat in the front row. "What is this nonsense? Get this woman out of here immediately," she shouted, pointing an accusatory finger at Jessica. Ashley felt her legs tremble. She held onto her father's arm, Mr. Richard, who was by her side ready to give her away to the groom. "Brandon, who is this woman?" asked Ashley, her voice trembling. It's Jessica. We dated 2 years ago," replied Brandon, unable to take his eyes off the baby. "Dated? For how long?" Ashley felt the world spinning around her. 3 years, admitted Brandon, running his hand through his perfectly styled wedding hair. Father William cleared his throat, trying to regain control of the situation. "My children, perhaps it would be better to resolve this more privately." "No," interrupted Jessica. "I tried to talk to him before, but he never listened to me. This baby needs to know his father." Brandon walked down the altar steps and approached Jessica. The baby was awake, looking around curiously with those familiar green eyes. "Jessica, when did you have this baby?" asked Brandon, his voice calmer now. 3 months ago. He was born in September, Brandon. 9 months after the last time we were together. The math added up perfectly. Brandon remembered that December night the previous year when they had tried to reconcile one more time. It had always been like that between them, a turbulent relationship full of breakups and makeups. "But you never told me you were pregnant," protested Brandon. "I tried." Jessica raised her voice, making the baby stir restlessly. "I sent messages, called dozens of times. I even went to your house. But you had changed your phone number and address. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing." Ashley approached the group, still wearing the long white dress she had chosen with such care 3 months before. "Brandon, is this true? You changed your number and didn't tell me," she questioned, suspicion growing in her voice. Yes, I changed it. I changed. But it was because Jessica wouldn't stop calling me, even after we broke up," explained Brandon, feeling cornered. "I called because I needed to tell you about the baby." Jessica held her son tighter against her chest. Mrs. Dorothy, Brandon's mother, who had been sitting silently observing everything, finally stood up. At 75, she had the wisdom of someone who had lived through many storms. "Son, perhaps it's best if we all talk calmly. This child—" She stopped, observing the baby closely. "This child has the Mitchell face." "Mom," protested Brandon. "It's no use denying it, Brandon. I raised you and I know very well what you looked like as a baby. This boy is the spitting image of you," said Mrs. Dorothy, moving closer to get a better look at the child. The baby smiled at the elderly woman, stretching his little hands toward her. Mrs. Dorothy felt her heart tighten. "What's his name?" she asked Jessica. "Ethan. Ethan Carter Williams," replied Jessica, allowing the potential grandmother to touch the baby's face. "Carter Williams? Why doesn't he have his father's last name?" questioned Ashley, the suspicion evident in her voice. "Because I wasn't sure if Brandon would take responsibility," admitted Jessica, "and my family insisted I give him my last name." Father William approached the group. "My children, I believe it would be prudent to postpone this ceremony until all of this is clarified." "Absolutely not," exploded Mrs. Patricia. "My daughter is not going to be humiliated because of some random woman who shows up with a child." "Mom, please, we are in a church," pleaded the priest, trying to keep the peace. Ashley looked at Brandon, her eyes full of tears. "Do you believe that baby is your son?" Brandon looked at Ethan again. The resemblance was truly striking. The shape of the face, the way his eyes closed when he smiled, even the shape of his ears was identical to his own. I don't know, Ashley, but the resemblance proves nothing," interrupted Ashley. "Are you going to cancel our wedding because of a coincidence?" "It's not a coincidence," said Jessica firmly. "I was never with another man during that time. Brandon is Ethan's father." "That's what you say," retorted Ashley. "But how can we be sure?" Mr. Richard, Ashley's father, approached the group. He was a hard-working man, owner of a small auto repair shop, and had always been direct with his words. "Listen here, young man. My daughter has spent the last few months organizing this wedding. We spent our savings on this party. Either you get married today or never again," he said. His finger pointed at Brandon. "Dad, don't talk like that," asked Ashley, though deep down she agreed with her father's stance. Brandon felt pressured from all sides. On one side, Ashley and her family demanding the wedding continue. On the other, Jessica with a baby who seemed to be his spitting image. "I need time to think," said Brandon. "Time?" Ashley almost shouted. "We have 60 guests waiting. The party is already paid for. The photographer is hired." "Ashley, please try to understand." "Understand what?" "That you might have a child with someone else and it doesn't matter." Jessica watched the argument in silence, rocking Ethan gently. The baby had started crying from all the noise and raised voices. "Maybe I should leave," Jessica said softly. "No," said Brandon louder than he intended. "I mean, if he really is my son, I need to know." Mrs. Dorothy approached her son. "Brandon, there's a simple way to resolve this. A DNA test." "A DNA test takes weeks," protested Ashley. "Nowadays there are rapid tests," explained Mrs. Dorothy. "The results come in 3 days." 3 days? Ashley looked around, seeing the guests whispering among themselves. "And what am I supposed to tell all these people?" Father William placed a hand on Ashley's shoulder. "My daughter, perhaps God is showing you something important before you make such a serious decision." "God?" Ashley looked at the priest with disbelief. "What does God have to do with this situation?" "Everything, my daughter. Marriage is sacred, but it must be based on truth." Brandon took a deep breath, trying to organize his thoughts. He looked at Ashley, then at Jessica and the baby, and finally at his mother. "All right," he said finally. "We'll do the DNA test." A tense silence filled the church. Ashley closed her eyes, feeling her perfect life crumbling. "And our honeymoon?" "The tickets are already bought," she said, her voice almost a whisper. "Ashley, if this baby is really my son, everything will change," admitted Brandon. "No, nothing has to change. Even if it is your son, that doesn't mean you can't marry me." Jessica finally spoke, her voice firm despite the tears. "Ashley, I didn't come here to ruin your wedding. I came because my son has the right to know his father." "And you couldn't wait? It had to be today, on my wedding day?" "I tried to talk to him before, but he avoided me." Brandon knew Jessica was telling the truth. In recent weeks, whenever she tried to speak with him, he made excuses. He thought they were just attempts to win him back. "Why didn't you tell me on the phone that you were pregnant?" asked Brandon. "I tried, but you always hung up when you realized it was me." The tension in the air was palpable. The guests began to shift restlessly in the pews. Some people were already whispering about leaving. Mrs. Patricia couldn't take it anymore and exploded, "Enough! My daughter will not be humiliated like this. Either you get married now or it's all over." "Patricia, please." Mr. Richard tried to calm her. "No, Richard, look at our daughter's situation." Ashley felt the tears returning to her eyes. Her whole life she had dreamed of her wedding day, and now everything was turning into a nightmare. "Brandon, tell me one thing," she said, wiping her tears. "If this baby is really your son, do you still want to marry me?" The question caught Brandon off guard. He looked at Ethan again, who was now sleeping peacefully in Jessica's arms. I don't know, Ashley. All of this is very confusing." "It's not confusing. It's simple. Either you choose me or you choose her." "It's not about choosing between the two of you," Brandon tried to explain. "It's about responsibility." "Responsibility? And you have no responsibility towards me?" Jessica felt compelled to intervene. "Ashley, I don't want Brandon back. I just want him to acknowledge his son." "Oh, of course. And you think I'll believe that?" "It's the truth," said Jessica firmly. Mrs. Dorothy watched everything carefully. As an experienced mother, she knew that situation needed to be handled with care. "Listen, everyone," she said, her voice carrying the authority of years. "Let's all leave here now, resolve this situation calmly, and then decide what to do." "But the reception—" began Ashley. "The reception can wait," said Mrs. Dorothy firmly. Father William agreed. "Mrs. Dorothy is right. I will announce to the guests that the ceremony is postponed for family reasons." "Postponed?" Ashley felt the ground give way beneath her feet. "Honey," said Mr. Ethan, putting his arm around his daughter's shoulders, "perhaps it's for the best." Ashley looked around the church, seeing her family, her friends, all waiting for an explanation. The humiliation was almost unbearable. "I'm going home," she said finally. "Brandon, when you decide what you want from life, call me." She left through the side door of the church, followed by her parents. Most of the guests also began to leave, leaving only Brandon, Jessica, the baby, and Mrs. Dorothy. "And now?" asked Brandon, sitting down in one of the pews. "Now let's do this test and find out the truth," said Mrs. Dorothy. Jessica approached and sat down next to Brandon. "Brandon, I know this was a shock for you, but I didn't know what else to do." "Why didn't you try to talk to me before?" I tried. I tried throughout the whole pregnancy, but you had disappeared from my life." Brandon vaguely remembered Jessica's missed calls in the first months of the year. At the time, he thought they were just her attempts to restart the relationship. "Jessica, our relationship ended because we fought too much. Why did you think I would want to get back together?" "I didn't want you to come back," she said, irritated. "I wanted you to know about your son." Ethan stirred in his mother's lap, making a small noise. Brandon looked at him again, feeling something strange in his chest. Can I hold him?" Jessica hesitated for a moment, then extended the baby to Brandon. When Ethan was in the possible father's arms, he opened his green eyes and stared directly at him. "Hi, little one," whispered Brandon, feeling an emotion he couldn't explain. Mrs. Dorothy watched the scene carefully. She had no more doubts that she was looking at her grandson. "You two will have to talk calmly about all this," she said. "But first, let's do this test." "Where?" asked Jessica. "I know a lab that works on Saturdays. Let's go there now," replied Mrs. Dorothy, already grabbing her purse. Brandon was still holding Ethan, who seemed comfortable in his arms. "And if he really is my son?" he asked, more to himself than to the others. "Then you'll have to make an important decision," said Mrs. Dorothy. "What decision?" "What kind of man you want to be." His mother's words echoed in Brandon's mind as they left the church. The day that should have been the happiest of his life had turned into an emotional roller coaster. At the lab, the procedure was quick and simple. A small saliva sample from Brandon and another from the baby. The result would be ready in 3 business days. "You can call Monday morning to find out," informed the technician. 3 days that would feel like an eternity. On the way back home, Brandon drove in silence. Jessica was in the passenger seat with Ethan in her lap, and Mrs. Dorothy in the back. "Where are you living?" Brandon asked Jessica. "With my Aunt Susan, in the industrial district. My parents, They were very disappointed when they found out about the pregnancy. Disappointed. They wanted me to get married first, to have a more structured life before having children. Brandon understood. Jessica's family had always been very traditional, practicing Catholics. A pregnancy out of wedlock must have caused a scandal. And your job? I lost it. I missed a lot of work during the last months of the pregnancy and after the birth. Mrs. Margaret, my boss, said I was no longer reliable. Jessica's situation was difficult. Without a job, living with her aunt as a favor, raising a baby alone. Are you getting any help? Aunt Susan helps as she can, but she's retired. She only gets a minimum wage. Brandon felt a weight in his chest. If Ethan really was his son, he had let Jessica go through all this alone. Why didn't you look for my mother? He asked. I thought about it many times, but I thought it would be too intrusive. Mrs. Dorothy spoke up from the back seat. Jessica, my dear, if this baby really is my grandson, you will never have to struggle again. Thank you, Mrs. Dorothy. You've always been very good to me. During the 3 years of dating, Jessica had become almost like a daughter to Mrs. Dorothy. The breakup had hurt Brandon's mother too. You two were both very stubborn, commented the elderly woman. Always fighting over silly things. They weren't silly things, Mum, protested Brandon. We wanted different things from life. What things? Asked Jessica. You always wanted to get married, have kids right away. I wanted to focus on my career first. And look where that got you, said Jessica ironically. You were about to marry a woman you barely know. The observation was spot on and it stung. Brandon really had known Ashley for only a few months. The relationship was fast, intense, and he had let himself be swept away by passion. Ashley isn't a bad person, he defended himself. I didn't say she was, I just said you haven't known each other long. 8 months. Exactly. We dated for 3 years, and you said you still weren't ready to take the next step. Brandon had no answer for that. Jessica was right. They arrived at Mrs. Dorothy's house, a simple but cozy home in the downtown district. Brandon had grown up there and knew every corner of the residence. Shall we go in? Suggested Mrs. Dorothy. We can talk better inside. I need to get back home, said Jessica. Aunt Susan must be worried. At least have some coffee before you go, insisted the older woman. They entered the familiar house. Brandon looked around, seeing the photos from his childhood scattered around the living room. If Ethan were his son, one day there would be photos of him there too. Jessica, can I ask you a question? Said Brandon as they sat in the living room. Sure. When you found out you were pregnant, what was your first thought? Jessica was silent for a moment, as if reliving that instant. Despair, she admitted. Pure despair. I knew my parents would throw me out, that I'd lose my job, that I'd be alone. What about me? Did you think about me? I did. But I remembered all the times you said you weren't ready to be a father. I was afraid of your reaction. Ethan started to cry, and Jessica automatically began to rock him. He's hungry, she explained. Can I give him a bottle here? Of course, my dear, replied Mrs. Dorothy. I'll warm up the milk. While Mrs. Dorothy prepared the bottle, Brandon watched Jessica with Ethan. She was a caring, affectionate mother, even amid all the difficulties. Jessica, if Ethan really is my son, Brandon began. If, she interrupted him. Brandon, he is your son. I am absolutely certain. How can you be so sure? Because you were the only man I was with during that time. And look at him, he's the spitting image of you. Brandon looked at Ethan, who was now nursing calmly from the bottle Mrs. Dorothy had prepared. If he is my son, Brandon continued, I will take full responsibility. What kind of responsibility? Financial, emotional, everything. He'll have everything he needs. And Ashley, how will she react to this? Brandon ran his hand through his hair. He hadn't really thought about Ashley since they left the church. I don't know. She's very hurt. She has reason to be, said Jessica. Imagine the humiliation she went through today. You also had reason to be desperate. Brandon defended himself. Mrs. Dorothy returned to the living room and sat next to her son. Brandon, regardless of the test result, You need to have a serious talk with Ashley. About what? About what you both want from life, about how to build a solid relationship. Mom, we love each other. Love isn't enough, son. You need compatibility, respect, understanding. Jessica watched the conversation in silence. She knew Mrs. Dorothy's wisdom well. Mrs. Dorothy is right, she finally said. Brandon, you and I never worked out because we wanted different things. But do you and Ashley want the same things? We've never talked about it deeply, admitted Brandon. Then maybe it's time to talk, suggested Mrs. Dorothy. Ethan finished his bottle and fell asleep in Jessica's lap. The baby seemed peaceful, oblivious to all the turmoil his arrival had caused. Can I ask another question? Said Brandon. Go ahead, replied Jessica. How was the pregnancy? Were you very sick? The first few months were tough, nausea, weakness, and I still had to work. It got a little better later, but the end was complicated. Complicated how? High blood pressure, swelling. I had to be on bed rest for the last few weeks. Brandon felt a pang of guilt. If he had known, he could have helped. And the delivery? Normal, but long. 12 hours of labor. Were you alone? Aunt Susan stayed with me. My parents, they didn't want to go to the hospital. The coldness of Jessica's parents struck Brandon. He remembered them as affectionate people, but apparently the pregnancy out of wedlock had been unacceptable to them. They never came to meet their grandson. Just once. My mother came when he was a month old, but she didn't stay long. And your father? He still hasn't met him. Jessica's family situation was much more complicated than Brandon had imagined. What name would you have given him? Jessica asked suddenly. What do you mean? If you were to choose the name, what name would you give? Brandon thought for a moment. I don't know. I never thought about it. Why did you choose Ethan? Because of my grandfather. He was the most important person in my childhood. Mr. Ethan from the farm? That's him. Do you remember him? Brandon remembered well. He had visited Jessica's grandfather's farm a few times during their relationship. He was a simple, hard-working man who had raised Jessica with a lot of love after her parents started working a lot. He was a good man, said Brandon. He really was. And I wanted my son to carry a little bit of him. Ethan stirred in his mother's lap, as if he knew they were talking about him. Can I hold him again? Asked Brandon. Jessica passed the baby to him. Again, Brandon felt that strange sensation in his chest. He's very calm, he observed. During the day, yes. At night he sometimes cries a lot. Colic? I think so. The pediatrician said it's normal in the first few months. Brandon rocked Ethan gently, watching as the baby seemed to relax in his arms. Jessica, he said finally, regardless of the test result, I want to help you and Ethan. Why? Because it's the right thing to do. You went through all of this alone and I feel responsible. Even if he's not your son. Even then. Mrs. Dorothy smiled, proud of her son's attitude. But I have one condition, Brandon continued. What? I want to be part of his life, not just financially. Jessica was surprised. What do you mean? I want to help raise him, be present, be... He hesitated. Be like a real father. And Ashley, how will she react to this? I don't know, but that's my problem, not yours. Jessica felt her eyes fill with tears. Brandon, are you sure about this? I am. Looking at him, feeling him in my arms. I can't imagine leaving him helpless. Even if your marriage to Ashley ends because of this. Jessica, if Ashley can't accept that I take care of Ethan, maybe she's not the right person for me. Brandon's words surprised even himself. He didn't know where that clarity had come from. Son, said Mrs. Dorothy, are you serious? I am, Mum. For the first time in a long time, I'm being serious. Then you need to talk to Ashley as soon as possible. I know. Jessica looked at Brandon holding Ethan and felt a mix of relief and hope. Maybe her son wouldn't grow up without a father after all. Brandon, there's something else I need to tell you, she said hesitantly. What? About the job I lost. It was actually because I talked about you. What do you mean? Mrs. Margaret asked who the baby's father was. I said your name and she got curious because she knew you by sight. Knew you how? You did some work at the company where I worked. You upgraded the electrical system last year. Brandon remembered. It was a small candy factory in the Westlake neighborhood. And what does that have to do with you losing your job? She started asking questions, wanted to know why you weren't taking responsibility for the baby. I explained that I couldn't talk to you, and she said a woman who can't even talk to her own child's father isn't fit to work at her company. The story left Brandon outraged. That's absurd. She couldn't fire you for that. She could, and she did. Said I was an irresponsible person. Irresponsible? You were taking care of a baby all by yourself. Exactly. But to her I should have resolved the situation sooner. Mrs. Dorothy shook her head, indignant. That Mrs. Margaret has always been a prejudiced person. You know her? Asked Jessica. I know her by sight. I've heard some stories about how she treats employees. Brandon felt even more guilt. Indirectly, his absence had cost Jessica her job. Jessica, when you get the test result, whatever it is, I'm going to talk to Mrs. Margaret. What for? To get your job back. Brandon, that won't work. Yes, it will. I know Mrs. Margaret well. I've done several jobs for her. I'll explain the situation and convince her to hire you again. And if she doesn't accept, then I'll find you another job. Jessica felt like she was dreaming. Just a few months ago she was completely alone, and now Brandon was offering help in a way she never expected. Brandon, why are you doing this? She asked. Because it's the right thing to do. Because I should have done it from the start. Ethan began to stir in Brandon's arms, slowly opening his eyes. Hi, little one, Brandon whispered again. The baby stared at him with those intense green eyes, as if trying to understand who that person was. You know what's strange, said Brandon. I feel like I already know him. What do you mean? I can't explain it. It's like he's always been a part of my life. Mrs. Dorothy watched the scene carefully. She no longer had any doubt that she was witnessing the first meeting between father and son. Son, she said, I think you should call Ashley today. Today? Yes. She deserves to know what you're thinking. Brandon knew his mother was right. Ashley was probably at home, devastated, not understanding what had happened. You're right. I'll call her in a little while. And what are you going to say? The truth, that regardless of the test result, I'm going to take care of Ethan. And if she says she doesn't accept that, then our marriage can't happen. The words came out of Brandon's mouth with a conviction that surprised everyone, including himself. Jessica felt her heart race. She wasn't expecting that reaction. Brandon, are you sure? I don't want to be responsible for ending your relationship. Jessica, you're not ending anything. You're making me see things I should have seen before. What things? What kind of man I want to be? What kind of life I want to build? Ethan yawned and closed his eyes again, comfortable in Brandon's arms. I think he likes you, observed Jessica with a smile. You think so? Babies sense these things. They know when they're safe. Mrs. Dorothy got up from the armchair. Well, I'm going to prepare dinner for all of us. Jessica, you're staying to eat. I won't take no for an answer. But Mrs. Dorothy... No buts. You need to eat well to be able to breastfeed properly. Jessica had no way to argue. Mrs. Dorothy had always been like that, maternal with everyone around her. While the elderly woman was in the kitchen, Brandon and Jessica were left alone in the living room with Ethan. Brandon, Jessica said quietly, can I ask you a personal question? Go ahead. Do you really love Ashley? The question caught Brandon off guard. He remained silent for a long moment. I thought I was in love, he finally admitted. Thought? It's just that now I don't know what love is anymore. When I look at this baby, I feel something I've never felt before. Like what? A desire to protect, to care for, to be present. It's different from what I feel for Ashley. Different how? With Ashley, it's passion, attraction, companionship. But with Ethan, it's instinct. It's like it's something bigger than me. Jessica understood exactly what Brandon was feeling. It was the same thing she had felt the moment she saw Ethan for the first time. That's paternal love, she explained. It's a kind of unconditional love. And with you? Brandon asked suddenly. What do you mean? How I felt with you when we were dating. Jessica was surprised by the question. Why do you want to know? Because I'm trying to understand my feelings, trying to understand what's real and what's just confusion. Brandon, we've talked about this many times. Our relationship had problems, but it had good things too. It did, but the bad things were bigger. Were they really? Jessica looked at him, seeing the confusion in his eyes. Brandon, don't do this. Do what? Romanticize our past because of Ethan. I'm not romanticizing it. Yes, you are. And that's not fair to me, or to you, or to Ashley. Brandon knew Jessica was right. Ethan's presence was stirring up his feelings in a way he couldn't control. I'm sorry, he said. You're right. I'm too confused to think clearly. It's normal. Your entire life changed in one day. And yours didn't? Mine changed 9 months ago, when I found out I was pregnant. I've already had time to get used to it. Ethan opened his eyes again and looked directly at Brandon, as if studying his face. He's very observant, said Brandon. He is. Ever since he was born, he's been looking at everything around him, as if he wants to understand the world. Just like me when I was little, according to my mom. Another similarity, Jessica commented. How many similarities have you noticed? Many. The eyes, the shape of the face, the way he moves his hands when he's thoughtful. Thoughtful? A 3-month-old baby gets thoughtful? He does. Look at him now. Brandon watched Ethan, who really did seem to be contemplating something deeply. It's true, Brandon laughed. He looks like he's solving the world's problems. Maybe he's trying to understand why his father only showed up now. Jessica's observation was made in a joking tone, but it hit Brandon hard. Jessica, I swear if I had known... I know, Brandon. I'm not blaming you anymore. Anymore? I blamed you a lot during the pregnancy. But after Ethan was born, I understood that sometimes things happen the way they're supposed to. How so? If you had known about the pregnancy, maybe we would have tried to get back together for the wrong reasons. Now, if we decide to build something together, it will be for the right reasons. What right reasons? Ethan. And only for him. Jessica's clarity impressed Brandon. She had really matured a lot during those months. Jessica, can I confess something to you? You can. When we broke up, I missed you for a long time. I missed you too. But then I met Ashley and thought I had gotten over everything. And now? Now I don't know anything anymore. Jessica fell silent, just watching Brandon with Ethan. Brandon, she said finally, can I give you some advice? You can. Don't make any important decisions today. Not about me, not about Ashley, not about Ethan. Why? Because you're emotionally shaken. Any decision you make now might not be the right one. But I need to talk to Ashley. You do. But you don't need to define anything. Just talk, explain what you're feeling. What if she wants an immediate answer? Tell her you need time. And if she doesn't agree to wait, then you'll have your answer about what kind of person she is. Jessica's wisdom continued to impress Brandon. When did you become so mature, he asked. When I became a mother. Motherhood changes us from water into wine. In what sense? We stop thinking only about our own happiness and start thinking about what's best for our child. And what would be best for Ethan? To have a present, affectionate, responsible father. To have a family, even if it's not a traditional one. Non-traditional family? Brandon, we both know we'll never be a couple again, but we can be co-parents, friends, people who respect each other. Are you sure you don't want to try again? Jessica looked directly into his eyes. Absolutely. Not because I don't like you, but because I know it wouldn't work. Why? Because we want different things from life. That hasn't changed. But now we have Ethan in common. Having a child in common is not a reason to start dating again, Brandon. In fact, it's one more reason not to try. How so? Because if it goes wrong again, the one who will suffer is Ethan. Brandon understood the logic, but a part of him was still confused. So what would be the best situation for Ethan? Separated parents who get along, who work together for his well-being, who don't fight, who respect each other. And is that possible? Of course it is. I know several cases. Mrs. Dorothy returned from the kitchen, interrupting the conversation. Dinner is almost ready. Brandon, have you called Ashley yet? Not yet, Mum. Son, don't put off that conversation too long. The girl must be suffering. Brandon knew his mother was right. He picked up the phone and dialed Ashley's number. Hello? Ashley's voice was hoarse, probably from crying so much. Hi, Ashley, it's me. Brandon, where are you? At my mom's house. And her? The baby's mother. Jessica is here too. Silence on the other end of the line. Ashley, are you there? I am. What are you guys doing? Talking, trying to understand the situation. And have you reached any conclusion? Ashley, can I come over so we can talk in person? No, I don't want you to come here now. Why? Because I don't want to see you, not yet. Brandon understood her anger. Okay, we can talk on the phone then. What do you have to tell me? That regardless of the DNA test result, I'm going to take care of Ethan. Another long silence. Ashley, why would you take care of a child who might not even be yours? Because looking at him, I felt a connection I've never felt before. A connection? Brandon, are you kidding me? I'm not kidding, Ashley. I'm being honest. Honest? You want to know what's honest? Honest would have been you telling me you still had feelings for your ex. Ashley, I don't have feelings for Jessica. Liar. It's in your voice. Brandon looked at Jessica, who pretended not to be listening to the conversation. Ashley, the feelings I'm having are for Ethan, not for Jessica. And what's the difference? If you're going to take care of her son, you'll be tied to her forever. And would that be a problem for you? Of course it would be. How do you expect me to marry a man who will always be involved with his ex-girlfriend? Ashley, if Ethan is my son, Brandon, you don't even know yet if you're that child's father and you're already willing to throw our relationship away. The conversation was getting more and more tense. Ashley, I'm not throwing anything away. I'm trying to be responsible. Responsible with a child who might not even be yours, and irresponsible with me, your fiancé. Ex-fiancé, Brandon corrected without thinking. What? Ashley, after today, are we still engaged? That depends on you, Brandon. You're the one who needs to decide what's more important, your future with me or your past with her. It's not about past and future. It's about doing the right thing. The right thing? The right thing is for you to honor the commitment you made to me, even if that means abandoning a child? Brandon, you don't even know if that child is yours. But what if it is? And what if it isn't? You'll have destroyed our relationship for nothing. Brandon felt the conversation was going in circles. Ashley, could you accept Ethan into our life if he were my son? Accept how? As my son. With visits, child support, involvement in raising him. And her? Jessica? Would I have to accept her too? You would have to accept that she is the mother of my child. No, I won't accept that. Why not? Because she'll always be between us. There will always be something to decide about the child. There will always be some reason for you to go over there. Ashley, that's jealousy. Of course it's jealousy. What did you expect? Brandon understood that Ashley was not willing to accept the situation. So you're giving me an ultimatum? I am. It's either her and the baby or it's me. Ashley, it doesn't have to be like this. We can find a way. No, we can't. I won't share my husband with another woman. You wouldn't be sharing, it would just be about Ethan. Brandon, you're very naive if you think it would just be about the baby. What do you mean? That the two of you will end up back together. It's inevitable. That won't happen. Yes, it will. You'll always be together because of the child. You'll reminisce about the good times. You'll end up getting involved again. Brandon looked at Jessica, who continued to pretend not to hear the conversation. Ashley, Jessica has made it clear she doesn't want to get back with me. And you believe her? I do. Then you're even more naive than I thought. The conversation was turning into a pointless argument. Ashley, do you want us to meet tomorrow to talk more calmly? What for? So you can convince me I'm wrong? To try and find a solution. Brandon, the solution is simple. If the test is negative, You forget this whole story and we get married. If it's positive, we each go our separate ways. And if I can't forget, even if the test is negative, then you will have made your choice. Brandon felt he was losing Ashley for good. Ashley, I need time to think. How much time? I don't know. Until Monday, at least. Is the test result coming out on Monday? Yes. Then on Monday you call me and tell me what you've decided. And if I decide I want to stay with you, but also take care of Ethan, then you'll have to choose again, because the two things together won't work. Why not? Because I said it won't work. Brandon, I won't be anyone's second choice. You wouldn't be a second choice. Yes, I would. Ethan will always come first, and by extension, Jessica will too. That's not true. Yes, it is, and you know it. Brandon fell silent, because deep down he knew Ashley was right. Ashley, Brandon, I'm tired of this conversation. On Monday, you call me with your final decision. Until then, I don't want to talk to you. Ashley, wait. But she had already hung up. Brandon stared at the phone, feeling lost. Did it go badly? Asked Jessica quietly. It did. She won't accept it at all. I'm sorry. I don't know why. You're not to blame for anything. But I know you cared for her. I do. But maybe caring isn't enough. Mrs. Dorothy came back from the kitchen. Son, did you talk to Ashley? I did. She gave me an ultimatum. What kind of ultimatum? Either I choose her or I choose to take care of Ethan. And what did you say? That I need to think. And do you really need to? Brandon looked at his mother, surprised by the question. What do you mean? Son, after everything we talked about today, do you still have doubts about what the right thing to do is? Mom, it's not that simple. Yes, it is. You're complicating it. But I care for Ashley. Caring for someone who doesn't accept your responsibilities isn't love, it's emotional dependency. Mrs. Dorothy's words hit like a punch to the gut. Mom! It's the truth, son. True love is support, understanding, accepting your partner as they are. Jessica remained silent, just listening to the conversation. But Mrs. Dorothy, she finally said, Ashley has her rights too. She's not obligated to accept a situation she doesn't want. Of course not, my dear. And she'd better be honest about it from the start. How so? It's better for her to say now that she doesn't accept it than to accept now and cause problems later. Brandon understood his mother's reasoning. Do you think she's being sincere about her feelings? I do, and you should be grateful for that. Grateful? Yes. Imagine if she accepted now and then made Ethan's life hell. Or your life hell. Brandon hadn't considered that possibility. So you think it's better to end the relationship with her? Son, I can't make that decision for you, but I can ask you a question. What? Could you live with yourself knowing you abandoned a child to please a woman? The question struck deep in Brandon's heart. No, he admitted. I couldn't. Then you already have your answer. Ethan started crying in Jessica's arms. He must have colic, she said, standing up to try and soothe him. Can I try? Offered Brandon. You can try. Brandon took Ethan and began walking around the room, gently rocking him. Gradually the baby calmed down. How did you do that? Asked Jessica, impressed. I don't know. I did what felt natural. Sometimes it takes me an hour to calm him down when he has colic. Maybe he feels he's in his father's arms, suggested Mrs. Dorothy. Mrs. Dorothy, we still don't know. My dear, I raised a son. I know how to recognize the bond between father and baby when I see it. Brandon continued walking with Ethan, who was now completely calm. You know what's funny? He said. I never really liked children. I always thought I wouldn't be a good father. And now? Asked Jessica. Now I feel I was born for this. Even not knowing if he's your son? Even so, it's like it doesn't matter anymore what the test will say. In my mind and in my heart, he's already my son. Jessica felt her eyes fill with tears. Brandon, you have no idea how happy it makes me to hear you say that. Why? Because I was terrified you'd reject him, even if the test came back positive. Never. Look at that little face. How could anyone reject that? Ethan was falling asleep again in Brandon's arms with an expression of complete peace. "I think we have a problem," said Jessica. "What?" "He doesn't want to leave your arms." It was true. Whenever Brandon tried to hand Ethan back to Jessica, the baby would fuss. "Maybe he missed his father during these 3 months," suggested Mrs. Dorothy. "Or maybe it's just a coincidence," said Jessica, trying to keep her feet on the ground. "Could be. But I prefer to believe the first option," Brandon smiled. During dinner, Ethan slept peacefully in Brandon's arms. It was a scene that would melt any heart. "Son," said Mrs. Dorothy, "can I make a suggestion?" "Sure, Mum. How about Jessica and Ethan stay here at the house until the test results come out?" "Here?" "Yes. That way you can spend some time together, get to know the baby better, and Jessica won't be alone with her aunt." Jessica was surprised by the suggestion. "Mrs. Dorothy, I can't accept that. It would be too much trouble." "No trouble at all, my dear. This house has always had room for those in need." "But, Jessica," said Brandon, "my mother is right. It would be good for Ethan to be in a family environment. And Ashley? How will she react knowing we're living in the same house?" "Ashley won't like anything I do regarding Ethan. Then it doesn't make a difference." Jessica thought about the proposal. It really would be better than continuing to stay as a guest at her aunt's house. "Are you sure it won't be a bother?" she asked. "Absolutely sure," replied Mrs. Dorothy. "It will be a pleasure to have a baby in the house again." "Then, okay, but only until Monday." "Deal," smiled Brandon. After dinner, Mrs. Dorothy showed the room that Jessica and Ethan could use. It was Brandon's old childhood room, full of memories and stories. "How ironic," commented Jessica. "Ethan will sleep in the same room as his father." "If he even is the father," corrected Brandon, though he no longer had any doubts. "Brandon, can I ask you something?" "Of course. Are you really ready to be a father? Not just emotionally, but practically." "How so?" "Changing diapers, getting up in the middle of the night, dealing with colic, fever, teething." Brandon thought for a moment. "I don't know if anyone is ever really ready for those things, but I'm willing to learn." "Even if it means giving up a lot of things?" "What kind of things?" "Hanging out with friends, sleeping in on weekends, spending money only on yourself." "Jessica," looking at Ethan, "none of that seems important now." "You're saying that now because you're emotional. But what about in a few months, when the novelty wears off?" "It won't wear off." "How can you be so sure?" "Because what I'm feeling isn't novelty. It's instinct. It's something that came from inside me the moment I looked at him." Jessica wanted to believe Brandon's words, but she was afraid of being disappointed. "And what if after the test results you change your mind?" "I won't change." "Brandon, you can't promise something like that." "Yes, I can. Jessica, regardless of any test, any result, anything, I will take care of Ethan as if he were my son." "Even if he isn't." "Even if he isn't." "Why?" "Because he's already won my heart, and there's no going back." Jessica felt a mix of relief and hope she hadn't felt in months. "Thank you," she said softly. "For what?" "For giving Ethan something I couldn't give him alone." "What?" "A family." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing, on Sunday morning, Brandon woke up early to the sound of Ethan crying. Without even thinking, he got out of bed and went to the next room. "Jessica," he whispered, "is everything okay?" "Sorry, Brandon. He has colic again and won't stop crying. Can I try to calm him down?" "Please, I've tried everything." Brandon picked Ethan up and started walking around the room, making the same movement as yesterday. Within minutes, the baby calmed down. "How do you do that?" asked Jessica, exhausted. "I don't know. Must be luck. Or maybe it really is paternal instinct." "You think so?" "Brandon, babies don't calm down like that with just anyone. He feels safe with you." Brandon looked at Ethan, who was now looking back at him with those intense green eyes. You know what I thought last night before falling asleep? What? That regardless of the test result, I want him to call me Dad. Brandon, I know it might sound crazy, but that's how I feel. It's not crazy. It's love. Mrs. Dorothy appeared in the doorway. Is everything okay here? I heard the baby crying. He had colic, but Brandon managed to calm him down, explained Jessica. Of course he did. Dad always has the special touch. Mum, we still don't know if... Brandon, dear, I already told you. To me, you two are already father and son. Ethan smiled at Mrs. Dorothy, as if he understood the conversation. Look at that. He smiled at Grandma, exclaimed the lady. Grandma, laughed Jessica. Of course, if he's my grandson, I'm Grandma, and look at that beautiful smile. The scene was touching. A family formed through love, not just blood ties. Jessica, said Brandon, can I make you a proposal? What kind of proposal? How about we spend the whole day together with Ethan like a family? What do you mean? We can go to the park, have lunch out, buy some things he needs. Brandon, people will think we're a couple. And if they do, we're not doing anything wrong. But what about Ashley? Ashley made it clear yesterday that she doesn't accept my closeness with Ethan, so what she thinks doesn't matter anymore. Jessica hesitated. The idea was tempting, but she was afraid of the consequences. I don't know if it's a good idea. Why not? Because it could give the wrong expectations for all of us. What expectations? That we can be a traditional family. And can't we? Jessica looked directly into Brandon's eyes. No, Brandon, we can't. Why? Because we already tried that before and it didn't work. But now it's different. We have Ethan. Brandon, having a child doesn't solve a relationship's problems. Sometimes it makes them worse. Brandon knew Jessica was right, but a part of him still had hope. So you don't even want to try? I don't want to risk Ethan's stability because of our confused feelings. My feelings aren't confused. Yes, they are, Brandon. Yesterday you were ready to marry another woman. Today you're here talking about forming a family with me. The observation was spot on and made Brandon reflect. You're right, I really am confused. And it's normal to be. Your life changed completely in 24 hours. Ethan started to squirm in Brandon's lap, signaling he was hungry. I think he wants to nurse, said Jessica. How do you know? He always makes these movements when he's hungry. Jessica took Ethan back and prepared to breastfeed him. Brandon watched the scene, feeling immense tenderness. Can I stay here? He asked. You can, but it'll be awkward. Why? Because I'll have to, take off my top. Brandon turned red. Sorry, I didn't think of that. I'll leave. You don't have to leave, just turn to the side. Brandon turned but continued the conversation. Jessica, did you always want to be a mother? Always. Since I was little, I dreamed of having children. And how has the experience been? Difficult but rewarding. It's a love you can't explain. Even with all the difficulties you've been through. Even so. Brandon, the day Ethan was born, when I looked at him for the first time, all the problems disappeared. There was only him and me. That must have been incredible. It was, but also scary. Scary, because I knew that from then on my life wasn't mine anymore. It was his. Brandon understood perfectly what Jessica was saying. That was exactly how he had felt since seeing Ethan. You can turn around now, said Jessica. Brandon turned and saw Ethan nursing peacefully. He seems to always be hungry, he observed. It's because he's in a rapid growth phase. The pediatrician said it's normal. Which pediatrician are you taking him to? Dr. Henry at St. Clair Clinic. Is he a good doctor? He's excellent, very attentive, explains everything clearly. And is he developing well? Perfectly. Weight, height, everything as expected. Brandon felt pride as if he were really the father. Jessica, can I go with you to the next appointment? You really want to? I do, regardless of the test result. The next one is Thursday. I'll be there. Ethan finished nursing and Jessica put him up to burp. Brandon, can I teach you how to make him burp? Can you? Of course, come here. Jessica taught Brandon how to position Ethan on his shoulder and give little pats on his back. When the baby finally burped, Brandon smiled as if he had conquered the world. "I did it," he exclaimed, proud. "Congratulations, Daddy," laughed Jessica. The word Daddy echoed in Brandon's heart in a way he had never experienced before. "Can you call me that again?" "What? Daddy?" "Yes, I liked hearing it." "Daddy," repeated Jessica, smiling. Ethan looked at Brandon as if he had also liked the word. "I think he approved," observed Brandon. "Babies sense these things. They know when they are loved." "And do you think he loves me?" "Look at his little face when he's in your arms. Of course he does." It was true. Ethan always became calmer and more attentive when he was with Brandon. "Jessica, can I tell you a secret?" "Go ahead." "Since I held him yesterday, I feel like my life makes sense for the first time." "How so?" "It's as if I've spent the last few years living on autopilot, with no real purpose, and now suddenly I have a reason to wake up in the morning. That's real paternal love. It's strange how it can be so strong and so immediate." "It's not strange, it's natural." Ethan began to yawn, a sign he was sleepy. "I'll put him in the crib," said Jessica. "Can I do it?" "You can try. But he sometimes wakes up when he changes hands." Brandon carefully picked up Ethan and carried him to the crib. The baby continued sleeping peacefully. "Another success," whispered Jessica. "It seems he really has gotten used to me." "He really has. Usually he's more difficult with strangers." "But I'm not a stranger. I'm his father." The words came naturally from Brandon's mouth as if it were an absolute truth. "Brandon, you really have no more doubts, do you?" "None. And you?" "I never did. From the first day I knew he was your son." "How?" "A mother's intuition. And now seeing you two together, I'm even more sure." They spent a few minutes watching Ethan sleep in silence. "Jessica," Brandon finally said, "no matter what happens between the two of us, I want you to know you can count on me for anything." "Anything?" "Anything. Money, help with Ethan, emotional support, whatever you need." "Why?" "Because you are the mother of my son, and because you went through all of this alone, when you should have had my support from the beginning. Brandon, you couldn't have guessed. I could have been more mature when we broke up. I could have left the door open for important conversations. We were both immature back then. You grew up faster than I did. Motherhood made you mature. And fatherhood is making you mature now." Brandon smiled. "Maybe Ethan came to teach us something." "Definitely. He already taught me that unconditional love exists. And he taught me that there is something more important than my own desires." Mrs. Dorothy appeared at the door again. "Sorry to interrupt, but the phone rang." It was for Brandon. "Who was it?" "Ashley." The mood in the room changed instantly. "What did she say?" "That she needs to talk to you urgently." Brandon sighed. He wasn't ready for another difficult conversation with Ashley. "I'll call her," he said, leaving the room. Jessica was left alone with Ethan, feeling a mix of anxiety and worry. She knew Ashley wouldn't give up on Brandon easily. In the living room, Brandon dialed Ashley's number. "Hello." "Hi, Ashley. My mom said you called. Brandon, I need to talk to you in person. Now." "Now?" "Yes, it's important." "Ashley, I'm taking care of Ethan." "Exactly. That's what I need to talk about." "What do you mean?" "Brandon, please, just give me an hour of your attention." Ashley's voice was different, less irritated, more pleading. "Where do you want to meet?" "Can it be at the square near your house? In half an hour?" "Okay." Brandon hung up the phone and went back to the room. "Jessica, I need to go out for a bit. I'm going to talk to Ashley." "Is everything okay?" "I don't know. She said it's important." "Do you want me to go with you?" "No," Brandon answered quickly. "I mean, I think it's better not to. It could complicate things even more." "I understand. I'll stay here with Ethan." "Thank you. I won't be long." Brandon kissed Ethan's forehead, who was still sleeping, and left the house. In the square, Ashley was already waiting. She was different from the day before. Calmer, more composed. "Hi," said Brandon, sitting next to her on the bench. "Hi. Thank you for coming. What did you want to talk about?" "About us. About what happened yesterday." "Ashley, let me speak first, please." Brandon agreed and stayed silent. "Brandon, I spent the whole night thinking about everything that happened, and I came to a conclusion." "What?" "That I reacted very badly yesterday. It was the shock, the scare, the frustration. It's understandable. But today, thinking more calmly, I understood some things." "What things?" "That you're being responsible. That this is what a decent person would do." Brandon was surprised by the change in tone. "And now, what does that mean?" "It means I want to try again." "Try what?" "Our relationship. Our marriage." "Ashley, you said yesterday you wouldn't accept Ethan in our life." "I know, but I changed my mind." "How so?" "I talked to my mother, to some friends. They made me see that I'm being selfish." Brandon didn't know if he should believe Ashley's sudden change. "And now you accept that I take care of Ethan?" "I accept with some conditions." "What conditions?" "That you be discreet, that you don't spend too much time with him, that Jessica understands what her place is." Ashley's conditions showed Brandon that she hadn't really changed her mind. "Ashley, you're talking as if Ethan were a favor you're doing for me." "That's not it." "Yes, it is. You're trying to control my relationship with my son. He's not even confirmed as your son yet. For me, he already is, regardless of any test." "Brandon, you're being irrational." "I'm being a father to a child who might not even be yours." The conversation was returning to the same point as yesterday. "Ashley, even if the test comes back negative, I'm not going to abandon Ethan." "Why?" "Because I love him." "You love a child you met 2 days ago?" "Yes. And if you don't understand that, then you don't know me." "Brandon, please, try to be rational." "I am being rational. I'm doing what my heart tells me." "Your heart is confused because of Jessica." "This has nothing to do with Jessica." "Yes, it does. You're living in the same house now." "How do you know that?" "I called your house and your mother told me." Brandon realized the conversation wasn't going anywhere. "Ashley, what do you want from me?" "I want you to choose, definitely. I already chose." "Well, chose what?" "To take care of Ethan, to be his father." "And me? Where do I fit in this story?" "That depends on you. If you can accept Ethan in our life, we can try. If you can't, it's better we each go our separate ways." "Accept how? With him being the priority in your life?" "Yes. Children should always be the priority." "And I'll be second choice forever?" "Ashley, a relationship isn't a competition, it's a partnership. But you're asking me to accept sharing you with another woman. I'm asking you to accept that I have a son." The frustration was growing in both of them. "Brandon, I can't," admitted Ashley finally. "Can't what?" "Accept this situation. No matter how hard I try, I can't." "Why?" "Because I'm jealous. Because I can't stand the idea of you with her and the baby forming a family. Ashley, Jessica and I are not a couple." "Not yet. But you will end up being." "That's not going to happen." "Yes, it will. It's inevitable." Brandon realized Ashley was stuck in a paranoia she couldn't overcome. "Ashley, I think you should talk to someone about this jealousy." "You think I'm crazy?" "I don't think you're crazy. I think you're suffering and can't see things clearly." "Brandon, the only thing I see clearly is that I lost you." "You didn't lose me. You chose not to accept me as I am." "As you are? A man who abandons his fiancée to take care of his ex's son? A man who owns up to his responsibilities? A man who doesn't abandon a child?" Ashley fell silent for a few minutes, watching the children playing in the square. "Brandon," she finally said, "can I ask you one last question?" "Go ahead." "If Ethan weren't your son, would you still take care of him?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because he needs me, and I need him." "So you're choosing him over me?" "I'm choosing to do the right thing." "And I'm not the right thing for you?" Brandon looked at Ashley, seeing the pain in her eyes. "Ashley, you are a wonderful person, but we want different things from life." "Do we?" You want a man who puts you above everything. I've discovered there are things that should come before any romantic relationship. Like Ethan. Like Ethan. Ashley sighed deeply. So that's it? It's over? Ashley, if you can accept Ethan in our lives unconditionally, without jealousy, without attempts to control, we can try. And if I can't, then it's over. I need time to think. You have until Monday. When the test result comes out, we'll talk again. And if the test is negative, it won't change anything. I will keep taking care of Ethan. Then I already know your answer, regardless of the test. You do. Ashley got up from the bench. Brandon, I'm sorry things ended this way. I'm sorry too. Do you really believe you're doing the right thing? I do. Then I hope you'll be happy. Thank you, Ashley. She walked away, and Brandon was left alone in the square, watching the families playing there. For the first time in a long while, he knew exactly what he wanted from life. He went home and found Jessica in the kitchen, preparing a bottle for Ethan. How did it go? She asked. As I expected. She can't accept the situation. I'm sorry. Don't be. It was better this way. Are you sure? Absolutely. Jessica, can I ask you a question? Of course. Do you think I'm crazy for being willing to give up marriage for a child who might not even be mine? No. I think you're being exactly what a father should be. How so? Protective, responsible, loving. Ethan is very lucky to have you. Even if the test is negative, especially if it's negative, because then it will prove your love for him is unconditional. Brandon smiled. You know what the most ironic part of all this is? What? I always thought I wasn't ready to be a father, and now I've discovered I was born for it. Sometimes life surprises us. Jessica, can I confess something to you? Go ahead. I'm happier now at this moment than I was yesterday before the wedding. Even with all the mess? Especially because of the mess. It's as if it put everything in the right place. Ethan started crying in the room, and automatically Brandon went to get him. Hi, my prince, he said, picking up the baby. Jessica watched the scene, feeling her heart warm. Regardless of what the future held, she knew Ethan would have a wonderful father in Brandon. The rest of Sunday passed peacefully. Brandon, Jessica, and Ethan seemed like a natural family. Mrs. Dorothy watched everything with satisfaction, happy to see her son finally finding his purpose. That night, when it was time to put Ethan to sleep, Brandon asked to give the last bottle of the day. Want to learn? Asked Jessica. I want to learn everything. She taught Brandon how to prepare the bottle at the right temperature, how to feed the baby without rushing, how to wait for the baby to burp. You're a fast learner, Jessica praised. I have a good teacher. Teacher, she corrected, laughing. Teacher, repeated Brandon, smiling. When Ethan fell asleep in Brandon's arms, they spent a few minutes just watching the baby sleep. Jessica, whispered Brandon. Thank you. For what? For bringing him into my life. For giving me the chance to be a father. You don't have to thank me. He is your son. Even if the test... Brandon, stop it. He is your son. Period. Brandon delicately kissed Ethan's forehead and placed him in the crib. Good night, my son, he whispered. The words echoed in the hearts of everyone present. It didn't matter what any test said. A family had just been born. On Monday morning, Brandon called the lab as soon as it opened. Is the result ready? He asked. Yes, sir. You can come pick it up whenever you like. I'm on my way now. Brandon, Jessica, and Ethan went together to get the result. On the way, there was a tension in the air, even though everyone already knew the answer. Nervous? Asked Brandon. A little, admitted Jessica. Why? You always said you were sure. I am, but there's always that little bit of anxiety. What if it's negative? It won't be. But what if it is? Brandon, stop torturing yourself. Look at Ethan. Look at you. You're identical. It was true. The resemblance between the two was undeniable. At the lab, the technician handed the sealed envelope to Brandon. Do you want to open it here or at home? Asked Jessica. Right here. I can't wait any longer." Brandon opened the envelope with trembling hands. He read the result once, twice, 3 times. "Well?" asked Jessica anxiously. Brandon smiled and showed her the paper. 99.9% probability of paternity. Jessica began to cry with relief. "I knew it. I always knew it." Brandon held Ethan in his arms and lifted him up. "You are my son. You really are my son." The people in the lab stopped to watch the emotional scene. "Dr. Brandon," called the technician. "Yes?" "Congratulations. He's a beautiful baby." "Thank you. He's my prince." On the way back home, Brandon couldn't stop smiling. "Now it's official," he said. "I'm a father." "How do you feel?" asked Jessica. "Complete. For the first time in my life, I feel complete." When they got home, Mrs. Dorothy was waiting anxiously. "So?" she asked. "Grandma," said Brandon, "I want to introduce your official grandson, Ethan Mitchell Williams." "Mitchell Williams?" asked Jessica, surprised. "If you allow it, I want to register him with my last name too." "Of course. He has the right to carry his father's name." Mrs. Dorothy took Ethan in her arms, with tears in her eyes. "My beautiful grandson. Grandma always knew you were family." The scene was emotional. 3 generations together, united by love. "And now?" asked Jessica. "What do we do?" "Now we take care of everything. Registration, child support, documents, everything." "Brandon, are you sure you want this responsibility?" "Jessica, for the millionth time, I am absolutely sure. Even knowing it will change your life completely. Especially because of that." The phone rang and Mrs. Dorothy answered. "It's Ashley," she said to Brandon. Brandon sighed. He knew he would have to talk to her one more time. "Hello? Brandon, what was the result?" "Positive. He is my son." Silence on the other end of the line. "Ashley? I'm here. And now? Now each of us goes our own way." "Are you sure that's what you want?" "I am absolutely sure." "Then, goodbye, Brandon." "Goodbye, Ashley. And I'm sorry for everything." "Me too." Brandon hung up the phone and turned to Jessica and Ethan. "Done. Now it's just the 3 of us." "And your mother," Jessica reminded him. "And my mother," smiled Brandon. "Brandon," said Jessica, "can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Do you regret anything?" Brandon looked at Ethan, sleeping peacefully in Mrs. Dorothy's arms. "About what happened yesterday at the church? Never. It was the best day of my life." "Even losing Ashley?" "Jessica, I didn't lose anything. I gained everything. I gained a son. I gained a family. I gained a purpose." "And what about the 2 of us?" asked Jessica hesitantly. "What about the 2 of us? How are we going to do this? How will it work? We're going to be the best parents we can be for Ethan." "And what about a relationship?" "Jessica, if anything ever happens between us, it will be natural, no rush, no pressure. And if it doesn't, we'll be the best of friends and partners in raising Ethan. Could you do that? Be just a friend?" "I can. What's important is Ethan's well-being." "And if I meet someone else?" "I'll hope it's someone who loves Ethan as much as I do." "And you?" "If you meet someone else?" "They'll have to accept that I have a son." Jessica smiled. "I think we're going to work out as parents." "I'm sure we will." Mrs. Dorothy approached with Ethan awake. "Brandon, I think your son is hungry." "My son," repeated Brandon, savoring the words. "I'm still not used to that." "You'll get used to it," laughed Jessica. "Jessica, can I give him the bottle?" "You can. You're the father." While preparing the bottle, Brandon reflected on the last 2 days. His life had completely changed, but for the first time, he felt he was on the right path. "Ethan," he said, picking up his son, "Daddy has so much to teach you. And you've already taught me the most important thing, what real love is." The baby looked at him with those intense green eyes, as if understanding every word. "And you know what else, my prince? You saved me. Saved me from a meaningless life, from wrong decisions, from a future that wasn't really mine." Ethan smiled as if approving of his father's words. Now we're going to build our family our own way, with lots of love, lots of affection, and lots of happiness. Jessica watched the scene, feeling that finally everything was in the right place. Ethan had a wonderful father, she had a partner in raising her son, and everyone had a family. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out, now continuing. 6 months later, Brandon was at the park, pushing Ethan on the baby swing. The little one laughed heartily, stretching out his tiny hands, trying to grab the leaves from the trees. "Hiya, Daddy," shouted a child on the swing next to them. Brandon smiled, imagining that in a few years it would be Ethan asking for the same thing. "Hi, Brandon," a familiar voice called him. It was Rachel, an old friend from work, who approached with a small child. "Hi, Rachel. How are you?" "Good. And you? I heard you became a father." "I did," said Brandon proudly, picking up Ethan. "This is Ethan. How cute. How many months?" 9 months. And this is my daughter Emma. She's 3. The children looked at each other curiously. "Brandon, can I ask, did you get married?" "I never heard about Ethan's mother." "It's a long story," laughed Brandon, "but the short version is didn't marry, but I'm very happy being a single dad." "Single dad? And the mother?" "Jessica is fine, thank you. We're raising Ethan together, but as friends." "How modern. And does it work?" "Perfectly. We're a non-traditional family, but we're happy." Rachel watched Brandon with the baby and noticed how fulfilled he was. "You're different, Brandon." "How so?" "More mature, more centered. Fatherhood has been good for you." "It really has. I never imagined I'd feel so complete." Ethan started to fuss, signaling he was sleepy. "I think someone needs a nap," said Brandon. "I should get going too. It was good to see you." "Likewise, give Emma a hug." On the way home, Brandon stopped at a toy store. He had developed the habit of always buying something new for Ethan. "What do you think of this one?" he asked his son, showing a teddy bear. Ethan stretched his little arms toward the toy, making Brandon laugh. "I think he approves." In the checkout line, an elderly lady admired Ethan. "What a beautiful baby. Is he your first child?" "Yes, he is, and the most perfect in the world," Brandon replied proudly. "Enjoy this phase. It flies by." "Everyone says that. I try to enjoy every moment." "That's good. They grow up so fast." When he got home, Jessica was in the kitchen preparing lunch. She had gone back to work a few months ago, but she always cooked on weekends. "How was the outing?" she asked. "Great. Ethan loved the swing." "And you bought a toy again?" "Just a little teddy bear," Brandon defended himself. "Brandon, he's going to get spoiled." "Let the daddy pamper his little boy," intervened Mrs. Dorothy, who was peeling potatoes. "You two are going to spoil Ethan," Jessica laughed. "That's what parents and grandparents are for," said Brandon, picking Ethan up. The family routine had established itself naturally. Brandon worked 3 days a week and stayed with Ethan on the other 2. Jessica worked 4 days and had 3 days off. Mrs. Dorothy helped whenever needed. It was a dynamic that worked perfectly. "Jessica, can I talk to you?" said Brandon. "Of course, what is it?" "It's about the apartment." 2 weeks earlier, Brandon had found a 2-bedroom apartment near Mrs. Dorothy's house. He wanted Jessica and Ethan to live there, but she was hesitating. "I still haven't decided," said Jessica. "Why?" "The apartment is perfect. The price is good." "Brandon, you already do so much for Ethan. I don't want you to feel obligated to take care of me, too." "I don't feel obligated. I want you to have your own home." "We already have one, here with your mother." "Jessica, you need independence." "And you? Won't you miss having Ethan sleeping in the next room?" The question caught Brandon off guard. He really had gotten used to having his son so close. "I will miss it," he admitted, "but it's better for everyone." "Why?" "Because you need to have your own space. And I need to learn to be a father from a distance, too." "Brandon, you don't have to prove anything to anyone." "I'm not trying to prove anything. I'm trying to do the right thing." Mrs. Dorothy spoke up. "Kids, Why don't we do it this way? Jessica and Ethan stay at the apartment during the week and on weekends they stay here. The suggestion pleased everyone. That's a good idea, said Jessica. That way Ethan gets both environments. And I don't stay too long away from him, added Brandon. Ethan, oblivious to the conversation, played with his new teddy bear, making little sounds of satisfaction. It's decided then, said Brandon. Next week you move. Brandon, said Jessica, can I ask you a personal question? Go ahead. Don't you miss dating? The question surprised Brandon. No, he answered sincerely. I'm too busy being a dad. But you're only 28. You can't stay alone forever. Who said I'm alone? I have Ethan. I have you as a friend. I have my mother. You know what I mean. I do, but I don't miss it, Jessica. When Ethan was born, he filled a space in my heart I didn't even know existed. And if someone special comes along, if they come along and accept that I have a son, great. If they don't accept it, they're not the right person. You've changed a lot, Brandon. For the better? Definitely for the better. Ethan started to cry, and Jessica automatically checked if his diaper was dirty. It's clean, he must be hungry. Can I give him his bottle? Sure, it's in the fridge. While warming the bottle, Brandon thought about Jessica's question. He really didn't miss dating. All his free time was dedicated to Ethan, and that satisfied him completely. Here you go, my prince. Daddy has your bottle. Ethan stopped crying immediately when he saw the bottle approaching. At 9 months old, he already recognized his father's voice and would calm down when he heard it. Jessica, said Brandon while feeding Ethan his bottle, can I ask you a question too? Go ahead. What about you? Don't you miss dating? Sometimes, she admitted, but I'm also in a really good place right now, focused on Ethan, on work, on our family. Our family? Yeah, we are a family, even if we're not a couple. A modern family, Brandon smiled. Exactly. Ethan finished his bottle, and Brandon put him up to burp. You know what I thought today, said Brandon. What? That if someone had told me a year ago that today I'd be a single father and the happiest person in the world, I would never have believed it. Life has those kinds of surprises. The best surprise of my life was you walking into that church with Ethan in your arms, even knowing all the trouble it caused, especially because of the trouble. If you hadn't shown up, I would have married the wrong person for the wrong reasons, and I would have raised Ethan alone, and he would have grown up without a father. Not without a father, corrected Jessica, with an absent father. It's different. Ethan burped and smiled at Brandon, as he always did after feeding. You're a smart boy, aren't you? Said Brandon. You know Daddy loves you more than anything. He really does know, observed Jessica. You should see how excited he gets when he hears your voice coming home. Really, really. He stops what he's doing and stares at the door. That's so sweet. Mrs. Dorothy approached. Brandon, can I suggest something? Of course, Mom. What if we start thinking about Ethan's baptism? Baptism. It's a tradition in our family. You were baptized. I was baptized. Brandon looked at Jessica. What do you think? I think it's a good idea, but it has to be something simple. Simple but beautiful, said Mrs. Dorothy. I can organize everything. Who would be the godparents? Asked Brandon. They have to be people who are special to Ethan, replied Jessica. My brother Christopher could be the godfather, suggested Brandon. And godmother? What about my sister Rebecca? Suggested Jessica. She's always been very affectionate with Ethan. Perfect. Let's talk to them. The idea of the baptism excited everyone. It was a way to officially celebrate Ethan's arrival into the family. In which church? Asked Mrs. Dorothy. In the same one where it all began, said Brandon without hesitation. At Sacred Heart of Jesus Church? Asked Jessica, surprised. Why not? That's where I met my son. But won't it be strange? Anywhere else would be strange. Jessica thought about it and agreed. You're right. That's where our family began. Ethan was sleeping peacefully in Brandon's arms, as he always did after feeding. Can I put him in the crib? Asked Brandon. Yes, but be careful not to wake him. Brandon took Ethan to the bedroom and placed him gently in the crib. The baby kept sleeping, with an expression of total peace. "Sleep well, my prince," whispered Brandon. "Daddy loves you more than anything in this world." When he returned to the living room, he found Jessica and Mrs. Dorothy talking about the baptism preparations. "Have you set a date yet?" he asked. "We were thinking about a month from now," said Jessica. "Perfect. Enough time to organize everything." "Brandon," said Mrs. Dorothy, "can I ask you something?" "Sure, Mom." "Are you happy?" "Happier than I ever imagined I could be. Even with all the changes, the responsibilities, especially because of them. Mom, for the first time in my life, I feel like I'm really living, not just existing." "That's good, son. You deserve all the happiness in the world." Jessica watched the conversation between mother and son, feeling grateful to be part of that family. "Mrs. Dorothy," she said, "thank you for everything." "For what, my dear?" "For welcoming me with open arms, for taking care of Ethan as if he were your own grandson, for being a second mother to me." "Jessica, you don't have to thank me. You brought joy to this house." "And a beautiful grandson," added Brandon. "The most beautiful in the world," smiled Mrs. Dorothy. The rest of the day passed peacefully. Brandon gave Ethan a bath for the first time by himself, an important milestone in his journey as a father. "Did you manage?" asked Jessica from the bathroom door. "I did, and he loved the warm water. Be careful not to get soap in his eyes." "Relax, I'm being super careful." Ethan played in the water, splashing his little hands and making small sounds of joy. "You like your bath, don't you, my prince?" said Brandon. "Just like Daddy." "One more thing in common," observed Jessica. "There are already so many things in common." "Like what?" "The eyes, the shape of the face, the calm personality, the love for a long bath, and the stubbornness," added Jessica, laughing. "Stubbornness? When he wants something, he doesn't give up until he gets it, just like you." "That's not stubbornness, it's determination." "If you say so." After the bath, Brandon dressed Ethan in the new pajamas he had bought that morning. "You look handsome in blue," he said to his son. Ethan held onto Brandon's finger and wouldn't let go, as he always did. "He doesn't want to let you go," observed Jessica, "and I don't want him to." "Brandon, can I confess something to you?" "Go ahead." "Sometimes I'm afraid." "Afraid of what?" "That all this happiness is temporary." "Why?" "Because it seems too good to be true. You being a perfect father, us getting along so well as parents and friends, Ethan healthy and happy." "Jessica, it's not too good. It's exactly how it should be." "You think so?" "I'm sure. Look at us. Look at Ethan. We're a happy family. A different family. The best family there is, a family made with love." Ethan yawned, signaling he was ready to sleep. "I'll put him in the crib," said Brandon. "Do you want me to sing a lullaby for him?" "Sure. He likes your voice." Jessica sang a lullaby softly, while Brandon rocked Ethan in his arms. In a few minutes, the baby was fast asleep. "Perfect," whispered Brandon, placing him in the crib. "You're becoming an expert at this," praised Jessica. "I'm learning fast, very fast." In the living room, Mrs. Dorothy had already prepared tea for everyone. "How was the first solo bath?" she asked. "A total success," replied Brandon proudly. "Soon you'll be doing everything by yourself." "I already do almost everything by myself." "It's true," agreed Jessica. "Brandon became a complete father in just a few months." "Because he has a good teacher," said Brandon. "And a good student," Jessica returned. Mrs. Dorothy watched the two talking and smiled. It was beautiful to see how they collaborated in raising Ethan. "Kids," she said, "you may not be a couple, but you are exemplary parents." "Thank you, Mom." "It's true. Ethan is very lucky to have you both." "We're the lucky ones to have him," said Brandon. "And I'm lucky to have you three," added Mrs. Dorothy. The night passed quietly. Ethan slept through the night, allowing everyone to rest well. The next morning, Brandon woke up early to prepare breakfast for everyone. He had developed this habit in recent months. "Good morning, family," he said cheerfully. "Good morning," replied Jessica and Mrs. Dorothy almost in unison. "Is Ethan awake yet?" "Not yet. He slept like an angel," said Jessica. "Great. That means he's growing well." While having coffee, they heard Ethan's first little cry coming from the bedroom. "There's our prince waking up," smiled Brandon, getting up to get him. "Good morning, my love," he said, picking Ethan up. "Daddy's here." Ethan stopped crying immediately and smiled at Brandon, as he always did in the morning. "You're hungry, aren't you? Let's get the bottle." In the kitchen, the whole family gathered for breakfast. Ethan in Brandon's lap, Jessica organizing his things, Mrs. Dorothy preparing more food for everyone. "You know what I thought?" said Brandon. "What?" asked the two women. "That this is the best breakfast table I've ever sat at in my entire life." "Why?" asked Jessica. "Because it has everything a man needs, family." Ethan made a little sound as if agreeing with his father's words. "I think he approved," laughed Jessica. "Of course he approved. He knows he is loved." "Very loved," added Mrs. Dorothy. "And protected," completed Brandon. "And well cared for," finished Jessica. Ethan looked at everyone around the table, as if understanding he was at the center of all that love. "Brandon," said Jessica, "can I make you a promise?" "You can." "No matter what happens in the future, no matter if we meet other people, no matter anything, we will always be a family." "Always," agreed Brandon. "Ethan will always unite us. And we will always put his well-being first. Always." Mrs. Dorothy watched the conversation with emotion. "You two are wonderful parents," she said. "We're learning," said Jessica. "And loving every moment," added Brandon. Ethan stretched his little arms toward his grandmother, who picked him up joyfully. "Come to Grandma, my beautiful grandson." The scene was perfect, a family united by love, created by the most unexpected circumstances. "You know what else?" said Brandon. "What?" asked the women. "I wouldn't change a thing. Absolutely nothing that happened." "Not even the scare at the church?" joked Jessica. "Especially the scare at the church. That's where my real life began." "Our life," corrected Jessica. "Our life," agreed Brandon, looking at Ethan in his grandmother's lap. And so the family, formed by the most improbable circumstances, continued to grow in love, understanding, and happiness. Brandon had found his true calling as a father. Jessica had the partner she had always dreamed of having in raising their son, and Ethan grew up surrounded by love and care from all sides. The story that began with tears and confusion at the church had transformed into a beautiful narrative of unconditional love, responsibility, and family. And the best part, it was only the beginning of many other happy stories yet to come. 2 years later, on Ethan's 3rd birthday, the whole family was gathered at Mrs. Dorothy's house for the party. The boy ran around the backyard, playing with his cousins and friends, while the adults talked and watched. "Brandon," said Jessica, "look how he's grown." "He's become a beautiful boy," replied a proud Brandon, "and smart. Yesterday he asked me why you and I don't sleep in the same house. What did you say? That Daddy and Mommy are best friends, and that some families are different." "And did he understand?" "I think so. He just said, 'But you like each other, right?'" "And you said?" "I said we like each other very much, and we like him even more." Ethan ran toward them, dirty with dirt, but radiant with happiness. "Daddy, Mommy, come play with me." "Let's go, my prince," said Brandon, picking him up. "I love you, Daddy," said Ethan, hugging Brandon. "I love you too, more than anything in the world." "And me?" asked Jessica playfully. "I love Mommy too," declared Ethan, stretching his arms out to her. "We are a happy family, right, my love?" said Jessica. "The happiest in the world," replied Ethan enthusiastically. And they really were, a family created by love, sustained by responsibility, and nourished by mutual dedication. Proof that love comes in many forms, and that the best families are those built with the heart. End of story. And you, dear listener, what did you think of this emotional story? Did Brandon make the right choice in choosing to be a father above all else? How would you react if you were in Ashley's shoes? Share your thoughts and experiences with us in the comments. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other narratives about love, family, and overcoming challenges. Your participation is very important to us.